you're our first. We've been looking forward to this for a while now, and so
it's kind of a goofy deal, but
I know.
Hold on a second. I want to know, what do you mean? What do you mean by kind of a goofy deal, John?
kind of a goofy deal in the sense that I, being the guest star on a podcast has kind of been a dream of mine.
But this is just
But
not what
this is not what I expected.
Hold on. What's?
I mean,
what guest
Sorry.
star?
Yeah.
What guest star do you want to be a program?
I mean,
on?
I thought it might be like on the Hank and John show.
Well,
something. I don't know anything about the scriptures, so they're probably not going to call me for that. But
wow.
I don't know who else is out there.
We're out there. We're getting out there.
So you're trying
You're
to say we're not mainstream enough for you?
I just did not know it would percolate right here in hometown Monmouth. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the hope in that it, expands beyond that.
You gotta start somewhere.
Not in a monetary way, but it'd just be fun to get out there and have people enjoy it. I think that any time that we can discuss gospel topics, which you don't need to be a scriptorian about, because the reality is it's your testimony of the gospel and your experiences of the gospel that create faith. And so it'd be great to delve into the scriptures, and be all of that. And that's awesome. But this is not what this is about here. This is not a gospel doctrine class. This is a John Boyack class about what
we want to know about John Boyack.
John Boyack. But if you would like to first, though, bring out that little dish that you.
Oh yeah,
I have brought you some tasty soup. I brought some for Haven as well.
Oh great.
Oh, yeah.
So now, here's the thing: is you asked me to bring a recipe.
Yeah.
And I kind of brought a recipe. It's halfway in my head. Might be a few key ingredients missing.
In your head or from the meal?
In every dimension. But so this recipe right here is 2 ingredients. Well, 3 if you include water, right? So, and I'll just warn you right now, it's an acquired taste.
Oh my.
But I have this every day.
Is this from Japan?
It is from Japan.
Okay.
So
that's where you served your mission, right? Yeah.
I did many millennia ago. So
maybe you shouldn't have had him bring something.
So this is miso soup.
Oh yeah, miso.
Miso soup is made from miso paste.
Yeah, miso crazy.
And this has
I gotta cut that out.
No, you don't. You hush up.
And this has a little.
It smells pungent.
Yeah. So miso paste is like halfway to becoming
fermented, right?
Halfway to becoming soy sauce, right?
You can tell the hint. There's definitely a hint of soy sauce.
Right. It's salty. So
just like Haven. Are you going to get in the camera there, Haven? This is our executive producer, Haven.
Hi, Haven.
Right there. Hello, Haven.
So
thank you.
So try this out, guys. Right. So it's a little salty.
Yeah.
Now, just let me ask you: Have you ever had
David?
Have you ever had fish jerky?
No.
Okay, I recommend it. It's pretty good.
That's good.
So this has dashi powder in it.
Oh, let me give her. Give me a try here real quick.
Which dashi
This
powder?
is better than I've had at restaurants.
Like I said, 2 ingredients. It's just there's all the balance of how much concentration of the miso paste versus the boiling water, and how much I add dashi powder, which is basically it's smoked fish made into a
Powder?
bouillon.
Oh, bouillon. Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it gives it a little flavor.
Yeah,
Now,
it's not bad.
It's good.
Now you also notice if you let it sit there for a minute, it might be too cold. It might have cooled down too much for this.
I mean, it's warm,
But if you look into it,
Oh yeah.
you can sort of see it has currents. There's the grains of the bean paste. So that miso is just soybeans, right? So the grains of the bean paste kind of swirl around, and particularly when you get a fresh bowl, it's a little hotter than this.
Yeah.
It'll make these patterns, and then it'll gradually the grains settle to the bottom. It
Wow.
becomes clear. Just
Haven
kinda
loves bean paste.
Kind of stir it and sip it a little bit.
She does. She loves a bean paste. What?
I think it's delicious.
Muffins. What are those?
I've had it before though.
Huh?
Red bean.
Red bean.
I love sesame balls.
So and this is just the basics, right? So from here you put in the goo. So goo is not GOO. It's GU, which is it just means the contents, the floating bits, right?
Yes.
So you could put in seaweed sheets. That's pretty common. Tofu is pretty common, and onion is pretty common.
So you say you have this every day?
I have this most days. It's kind of a constitutional. It definitely makes me feel good.
Sure.
Inside and out.
Well, I'll tell you. So for just in passing, and we asked everyone that we're going to interview to have like a recipe or something that is a part of their life in some degree or somehow. And so, just for everyone to know, this is why John brought us this soup. Is that and it's one of those things where if you can print one up, you know what I mean, whatever you have in it, whatever not too.
Oh, sure,
I would like to put together a book for the ward to have a cookbook.
So the other that's awesome. I think that's an excellent idea. The other recipe I was going to talk about until I'm like thinking, what recipe am I going to give you while I'm eating miso? Right?
Yeah.
It's called oyakodon, which is
Peanut butter and jelly.
Close.
Oh yeah.
Oya means, and you've probably heard of donburi in Asian food.
Well, she's a lover of Japanese everything, so you have to.
Yeah,
she's our source expert.
Don means bowl, right? So it's a bowl of something. Oya means parent. Ko means child. So it's a bowl of parent and child. Right?
Well,
so it sounds tasty
So
already,
deep.
right? So so it's actually chicken and eggs.
Oh my.
And onion, and it's flavored with soy, brown sugar, some of this dashi smoked fish flavor, and mirin, which is a rice wine. It's got a nice sweet and savory flavor to it.
So how do you eat it then? I mean, what's the consistency of the food, I guess?
Well, so you're going to have it. It's going to be more like a stew looking. It's a thin broth, but it's going to have lots and lots of chicken and egg and onion in it. And then you'll have a bowl of rice, maybe about this size, right? And then you can pour some of that broth and the chicken and the egg over the top, and then eat it.
Yum.
It's kind of a rice mixture. So it's pretty
That's
good.
interesting.
Sounds good.
Well, I mean, so if it's something like that, you could feel free to. Also bring
some by your house.
Well, feel free to bring. Here's the thing.
We're taking orders.
Here's the thing. Feel free to bring food anytime you feel like it by the house. But if it's something like that, I mean, I'm sure people would enjoy that as well. So if you have something like that, we could put it in the book as well. So either way, I do appreciate it because it's always interesting to try new things.
Yeah, totally.
But this way, we were supposed to make it for you. So, but
Oh
you
yeah,
did it now.
Well, you can still. I'll give you the recipe and you can make it for me.
Sounds pretty easy.
Actually, yeah. I mean, knowing your guys' cooking skills, I would love to have you make it for me. It'd be better than what I make. For myself.
Yeah.
Well. So this is that.
So
and
now
that's
at
why
our house, we actually call it boyakodon.
Oh wow.
How about that?
Nice.
Well, make sure you put that on the top of the paper of like that's the name of.
I'm gonna make basio odon too. Watch. What is it?
Mine will be Bo.
Bo.
Boyack. Mine's Boyack.
Just bodon.
Yeah, mine's Bodon soup. No, and for the people as well, John and I are related.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
You're not, so
No, I'm not.
well, you should. I actually don't even know why you're in this.
Yeah, why am I
interview.
even in this?
Yeah. You can step out for a little.
All right.
Bit.
Mute my mic.
But my, so yeah, what is it, a couple generation back? I had a Boyack, in maybe Spanish Fork. Well, I mean, I can't remember Spanish Fork.
If that rings a bell to you, Spanish Fork is right on target with my ancestry. That's where lots and lots of Boyacks come from.
Yeah.
And they just put a temple there. Just announced a temple there
just
today.
announced
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah, and actually, David was complaining about that. Just so you know.
I said, how many temples does Utah need? I mean,
Yeah, a few.
and the prophet seemed a little reluctant because he named that one last. And yeah.
No, he did it for the cheers.
Oh,
David, that's why. So people were actually it was only cheers. It was kind of like Kind of like a.
Oh yeah.
You're like the same as you. Like another one of you, Tom. What are we doing here? So, no, it's fantastic. But so we're what, third cousins? I believe is
I think
what,
it was fourth.
fourth cousin.
Which is
You
right
know
on
what?
the edge between related and not related.
Yeah, John. Well, let's go ahead and say we're third cousins.
Okay.
Let's just move it up.
That's a
And
deal.
however this goes, we could be second
Hey, when you
second cousins.
When you served here, did you know he was your cousin? Or did you find out later?
No, he just. I
We just-
so I
you
got
just found
one.
out, like,
May
a
last
month ago?
not this
Or no, it was last
Christmas, like
year.
Christmas of last
Oh,
year,
okay.
because I got my mother-in-law got a big poster with all the stuff
Uh-huh.
of my background. So I just there's a Boyack. I'm like, hey, do you know Edith? What is it? Edith, I think, or something like
I
that.
don't remember.
How do you not, John?
I mean, if you're
It's a Boyack, and you're a Boyack.
if
man.
you wanted the guy with the memory, I forget, but there's a different guy you're supposed
Maybe
to
we
get.
should interject him.
should.
Maybe we should put John in the. He's like the fourth slot of our interviews. So- no, it was that's awesome. But we just, I guess for us an introduction, David, go ahead. I mean, if you just kind of want to, introduce what this is and tell.
Yeah, this is our podcast here. We had a name, Funeral Potatoes.
Well, it's
And-
hold on, John. It's Faith Odyssey,
Faith Odyssey
and Funeral Potatoes.
and Funeral Potatoes. So this is the funeral potato part, and then we're gonna learn about you and your Faith Odyssey and your journey.
Hold on, before this goes on, what do you feel about this name, John?
It's definitely got a good vibe to it. I like it.
Perfect.
Faith Odyssey and Funeral Potatoes.
Yeah. Well, because we wanted it's like Faith
If you
Odyssey.
change it, we can redo this scene, and I can say I like that.
Yeah. Well, if you say something I don't like, I'm just gonna impose like something on when you say something like I'm like, see. They're like, hey, John, how do you like it? But your mouth will keep moving. It'll just say, see. That's what I want to do. But
So we decided to start this just to interview people in the ward and just get their story and just kind of
I think
learn
it's fun.
all about it.
I think it's fun. I think it's a genius
I'm really
idea.
interested in learning about some of the members in our ward that you just maybe see them once, and plus we've known each other for a long time. But I think that's what's also good is that you know us, you're comfortable. I mean, it's not some crazy podcast. I mean, this is all spiritual based, and we talk about a lot of church stuff. So
Yeah.
I just think it's good.
it'll make it difficult because I like to say things that I shouldn't. So that'll be the
Yeah.
that'll be the part where the editing might come in. So I run my mouth. Unfortunately, it's a bad
right.
part.
But yeah, we were just gonna do it where we're just having a conversation, but we decided to send out questions, and we'll probably send out questions to kind of get things moving along. I don't know.
And I pondered each of those questions for
Nice.
maybe 6 seconds each, and
That's 4 more seconds. Than
He
I
wrote 'em.
thought, So
yeah.
What do
He
you,
wrote
what do you
But
mean
I
by
don't
that? He
remember
wrote
the
'em?
questions, so hopefully.
Well, no, and
We
that's
wrote 'em.
here's the thing. Like that's part of. I'm just as progress in terms of how I want to do this. These questions may change.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean. Depending on how you answer them. How I feel like you answer them. Whether I believe you answer them correctly.
Take 2.
Whether I believe you
Take
answer
3.
correctly. No, but they may change in terms of how it progresses. And this is just kind of, I think, an outline on things to ponder about, like you said. So maybe not necessarily remember each of them specifically, but just, okay, well, first of all, I mean, it's just about, okay, well, your childhood, your background, who you are. And then it's like, okay, well, then how do we transition into spiritual, sort of aspects of it. So I think that's kind of the idea. So I think for specific, like, I mean, for you specifically, I guess if I kind of want to know, okay, well, who are you now, John? Like, I mean, as in marriage, kids, things like that. And, sort of, then it can transition. Okay. Where John came from, but
Sure.
I just, what interests you now in your life? What do you have going on now that you think's really,
Well,
you wake up every day and have Boda soup or Bo do, what is it?
It's this is miso soup.
No, that's Bo.
Bodone.
You've claimed it.
Bodo. Yeah, I've claimed it.
So I'm working full time. Thankfully, I work from home. Used to have to commute 70 minutes each way up to Forest Grove. So the pandemic was real good to me for that.
Too soon, John. We don't say that.
And so I work as a business systems analyst. So my job is just to make the computer systems and the people systems work well together. And I work for a manufacturing company. I've always worked in manufacturing since the 90s. So the company I work for makes printed circuit boards and other electronics intermediate products. So they're never the final product.
Yeah.
But, we have a house here. It's lots of green grass, big garden, and enjoy those things. I would say we enjoy camping, but really it's I enjoy camping. And getting somebody to go with me is sometimes a challenge. But we are going to go out to. We're going to meet our kids and grandkids out at what's that place called? Yellowstone. So
Really?
this
Cool.
summer. So we're looking forward to that.
When's that?
June. Yeah. So
I hope you're I hope I see you on a video. One of those people that's out there trying to pet the bison. just gets destroyed by the bison.
I'll maybe we can get a video editor to help us with that experience.
Hey,
Be like, yeah, that was John. He was a good man.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be on the Tourons list, the more tourist morons.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, I do moronic things every day.
Yeah.
So, but they're usually not dangerous.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Here's to hoping.
I mean, and so my last moronic thing was I cleaned the cat box, put it in a paper bag, rolled up the top, and put it out on the front porch because it was raining and it was night and I wasn't going to go out. I was going to take it out the next morning, but I didn't happen to go out the door the next morning. I work from home, and my wife had 6 music students come during the day, and it's no big deal except for one of them thought that it was a gift for us and brought it in the house.
Oh yeah, light it with fire. That's what you should do.
This is DoorDash? What is it?
Oh man, is this that Japanese meal?
Yeah.
Is that the miso soup, or is that what it is?
Yeah. So anyways, my life's pretty simple. I love serving in the church. I work full time. I got full-time family, and we do some yard work, and occasionally I go out into the mountains and just breathe the green air. Wait, fresh air.
Green air? that green air?
No, the green air.
It's marijuana.
Yeah.
It's really green
They're
air,
in Oregon.
John,
Yeah.
Fresh air.
So you have how many children
I
again?
have 5 and 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
Where do all your children live at now? Actually,
Missouri and Spokane. And actually, as we speak, Wendy is driving to Spokane. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Who lives in Spokane?
That's McKay. She did live in Southern Oregon, and before that, she lived in Salem.
But you have some in Oregon, right?
Just our 2 of our single kids.
Yeah. I know that in Missouri, right? They're building hobbit homes, right?
That's their hope for the future. Yeah, they haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They haven't started yet.
they haven't started that project yet. They've been clearing the land.
Yeah.
They've got the land.
They always do cool stuff.
They do cool stuff, don't they?
Like the
sandcastles.
Yeah, the sandcastle. That's
that?
my favorite.
Short enough to be a hobbit, and you have massive feet.
Well, yeah. Never mind. We're glad you don't have a microphone. Okay. You just,
See, I did it for a reason.
yeah. Thank you. You could still pick her up in here, though. I heard a little bit of it. So. They're over by Branson, Missouri, right?
Yes.
Close to Branson.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, they move out of compound.
It's just a house. Yeah. So,
Well, but have like how many families in the house?
so they do. So my son-in-law is Raymond. Raymond Jessup. His parents do live there.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Oh.
Just the 2.
I thought it was more at one point in time, maybe.
I think it was going to be, but
Didn't end up working out. Like.
settled down to a smaller group.
Oh well, that's still kind of cool. I mean, if your family's close enough stuff, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Draw your own, make your own little compound to
Absolutely.
separate from the rest of the world. Those heathens,
Well,
especially Missouri heathens.
Well, I just think it brings families closer together when they're all,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
I mean, they finally got rid of that. What, like 30 years ago or something about the extermination order from Missouri. So,
I remember that. That was in my lifetime. Yes.
yeah. So, I guess it was a good time to finally move out there. But, yeah.
So what has been like one of your most interesting callings, or just
You know what?
that?
I got to serve as the primary chorister. For
I've done that.
for like
Yeah,
5
I've
years.
It is
I also
so.
did it too.
Have you guys both done
We both
that?
did it. Yeah, I loved
That
it.
is an awesome
Yeah,
calling.
we have.
It's
It
one of
is
the
so cool.
best callings in the church, because no matter how you screw up, they still want you back
Oh,
the
yeah.
next week. They love you.
They
Those
do.
kids are just so great.
Mine was very difficult though,
Was
because I didn't grow up in the church like this. I just don't remember. I didn't know any
I didn't
of the
either.
songs.
We're both
Oh.
converts. I
So-
mean, I didn't grow up with any of these.
You had to
hymns.
learn the songs.
So it was
Yeah.
hard to be like, like, oh yeah, this song and stuff. Because I'm like, I don't know that song at all, and so it's hard to get these young kids to figure it out too. And I'm trying to figure out myself.
I do catch myself like humming some of the old tunes that they sing,
Yeah.
like Scripture Power, Love
Yeah.
to See the Temple, and Come Listen to a Prophet's, all that.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's that?
What ages were you when you did that?
That was actually right. When was it? It was right before we moved, and I can't remember if it was we moved to the different ward or when we
Oh,
moved to
yeah.
Washington.
Was Wolfenstein there?
Because Bishop Dunmeyer was the bishop when he called me to do it, so I know that.
So
that
10-ish years ago.
Yeah.
yeah,
I had
right
Bishop
around 10
Tharp
years ago.
call
So
me for that.
yeah, around 34,
Yeah.
something like that.
And I think it might have been Bishop Tharp calling me too.
Oh, yeah.
Do you need tissues?
Huh?
Do you need tissues?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little warm in here. You probably open a
It's
window,
warm in
maybe.
here. I've been noticing it's been getting a lot warmer in the chapel. Like,
I noticed that the other day. Yeah.
I don't know. I
Like
think
you
it's.
could-
I think we're all just getting older.
I think
Probably.
I think it's conspiracy.
oh,
Hey, this is our next section. David's conspiracy. This
yes.
is our next,
Let's talk about
our next section here.
Sister podcaster.
Yeah, that'll be one. I'm surprised. I am actually 100% surprised he hasn't started his own conspiracy podcast. I
Well,
truly am surprised that hasn't happened.
I was gonna take a class from a guy, and all he does is basically runs down how to do all this and what websites to go to, and you can link him, and it's part of a network of other conspiracy people, and they all thank you. It's part of a network of a bunch of conspiracy, and I thought, man, that'd be nice just to get the truth out. But let's start with this one first before I,
Before you
Well,
get
let's get
into
the actual truth out
HVAC
before.
system.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
the
yeah,
truth, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Before you
there
get
you-
into the HVAC system
Yeah.
issues. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we can kind of look at the questions now
Yeah.
and then go from there just to kind of get an idea. I know that you're the Elders Quorum president at the moment.
I am at the moment.
In the ward. So I know that that's a strenuous calling. So, I mean, it can't
he's
be
done
right.
it before,
I mean,
though, right?
Well, he was the Elders Quorum president before he merged wards. But
Yeah, this is round 2 for this go round. I was Elders Quorum President Junior in
junior.
in 1998, 99.
Wow. When I first moved to the ward, you were the Elders Quorum president.
Yeah, that's when that was. Yeah, but that's it's a lot different now.
Yeah.
Yeah. John knows where. That's where that's a sweet spot. He just float along right there. Just the Elders Quorum president.
I don't know what'll happen next, but this is good for.
Yeah.
I'm good for this for a couple more years.
As you sat and pondered the questions, stuff like that, I think the first one which is on this list, is how would other people describe you growing up?
Not
If you want.
not nicely.
Depends on how you ask it.
Yeah, it depends on what part of my awkward years. Was it the 3 to 10 awkwardness, or was it the 10 to 20 awkwardness?
Well, there's a thing, because growing up can mean so many different
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
'Cause-
So, I was the 6th of 7. So,
Yeah, obnoxious, yeah.
so you had to be obnoxious to get noticed, or sometimes the strategy was just to keep your head down because of all of the other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Then if you could stay unnoticed,
Yeah, yeah.
that was good. So it was sometimes one way, sometimes the other. But yeah.
Okay, but not necessarily like your family describe you, maybe necessarily, but like other people
yeah.
in terms of.
Man, I wish I had read this question and written something out. So honestly,
I mean,
I'm not,
if you want 5 minutes to really think about it right now, John, I'll
yeah,
give you
I can tell you, I'm not proud of most of those years
Okay.
of my character, um, and sometimes it was just challenging to have a positive attitude about things.
So on that roof, in terms of, so the next question really says, because I'm curious, as a part of that, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Springville, Utah, so next door to where that temple was announced today.
Yeah.
Yep. It's so this is the 1960s and mostly the 1970s and 80s, so it's a very Mormon, very Republican, very beautiful little town.
That sounds beautiful.
Very, very. Yeah, I suppose it was conservative. There was no politics in my life at that point. It was,
I guess the
Ronald
community.
Reagan. Ronald Reagan was quite the hero.
Oh yeah,
He still is, John.
Yeah. I actually did in high school. I got to go with the marching band to Ronald Reagan's second inaugural, which was canceled a lot like this year's was because of the cold weather.
You didn't want to. No, nobody was going to the Walter Mondale.
Except
for Minnesota, it's the only state that.
I don't remember the reference.
Walter Mondale was who he ran against.
Oh yeah,
Reagan
yeah.
in the second one, and
Minnesota
Minnesota
was
was
why
the
we don't remember that.
Minnesota was the only state that voted for.
Oh
him.
yeah,
Every 49 states.
It was the landslide of all landslides. He was a very popular president. We all. Well, we don't talk too much about him, but
I just know because
But it was Springville, Utah. It was a beautiful town. Yeah.
My mom grew up in L.A., but then moved. And all of her family is in Payson. That's where my grandma lives, in Payson. And then my father's family, who I don't know, but they're Hathaways, but they all live in Payson and Santaquin, Goshen, right?
So I think at least back then, it's probably very different now, but Santaquin and Goshen kind of like more of the farming communities.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Payson, Spanish Fork, Springville, they're all the same town.
Sure.
They're just carbon copies of the same town, not necessarily running together border to border like they do today, but not the same character as a Provo or a Salt Lake, but just a good, solid.
And it's like
community.
10 minutes south of Provo, right?
Exactly. So I lived at home when I went to BYU. So we had, I don't know how many stakes were in that town. There was one high school, and it was I guess I would say it was a close-knit community in some ways.
But you're saying people didn't necessarily have a favorable view of you, John?
No, I don't have a favorable view of kind of some of my, like I said, how my character was developing. So I hadn't even thought about I would suppose that people would have seen me, school friends would have seen me as kind and maybe funny, I did well in school, but I was a bit proud. I was a bit flippant. I was often inconsiderate of other people's feelings.
So nothing's changed then.
Yeah. I was.
This isn't confession, John.
No, it's all right. I mean, high school. High school is probably the same for a lot of people today, in that, if you don't know yourself, then you kind of up in that rat race of, what can I do to get to the in crowd, right?
Yeah.
And it's what's nice about life is eventually enough hard knocks come and you learn to know yourself. And then it's like, whatever crowd, they're all great. I love my crowds,
Yeah.
So the growing up years are, something I still sometimes try to understand about my life.
Yeah.
What'd you major in at BYU?
Everything.
Really?
Yeah.
He's still going to
Oh,
BYU.
he's still. Yeah.
I still have
He's
nightmares.
still on the BYU pathways. He's still just like doing it.
Yeah. I graduated in Japanese and business.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So that kind of probably had an influence that. Well, no, I guess that was after.
He
you
went
mentioned,
after. Yeah.
Did you take any like language in school then?
So in high school, I took German a year. In my freshman year at BYU, I took 2 semesters of Italian, and then I went to Japan.
It makes sense. It's perfect. Makes perfect sense.
Perfect way to roll. Yeah.
Well, I would imagine though, right? If you take other languages, maybe did it help you learn the language, Japanese language, easier, or it's just like it's so different that
I mean,
you didn't even.
Short answer, yes. at the time it didn't feel like it was easier at all, because I feel like, I had this part of my brain that was reserved for the other language, and it was all filled with Italian at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would, they had this thing in the MTC called SYL, speak your language. So even though we were a bunch of white guys sitting in Provo, Utah, we'd try to speak the language that they're teaching us in classes, right?
Oh man, that must have been hilarious.
So it's like they really, really try to. And some days it worked out really well, where I maybe would say 10 or 12 sentences in Japanese, but towards the end of my time there, in a full day. But so in that effort, though, to okay, I got to speak my other language that's not English, and Italian would come out. Not that I knew that much of Italian either, but it was, so there wasn't, but it was good in the sense that I had exercised that mental capacity. But learning a second language, particularly if you didn't grow up with it, it's mentally exhausting.
Yeah. See, that other compartment for other languages in your brain, mine is full of 90s and 80s music.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's so
Well,
that makes you feel any better. Of
that's
real important things.
Well,
in
who were
life
we listening
that
to
are-
earlier?
Brian Adams.
Adams.
yeah, let's listen to Brian Adams.
The summer of '69.
Good job.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I was listening to another song because you were like, wasn't that song for Robin Hood?
Oh yeah.
And there was one song, right? Everything I Do for You. But then the song that I was singing was for Three Musketeers. But I was listening to another song after that, and that was in Zorro.
Oh.
So it's like, man,
Dang.
Brian had that run of in 90s movies, or he was in three of the most popular ones. So
That's
it's
funny.
pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure he's sitting pretty on his
Oh, well,
Canadian.
I know he is, but man, we can only dream.
So, do you have a favorite prophet or?
Hold on. One question real quick. In terms of this.
Oh yeah.
That was on there.
No, I know.
I know, but
he's
he's trying to. I was just.
He's moving ahead. We're still on.
We're trying to get to the
We're
end.
still in the personal life, real quick. Hold on a
Okay.
second. But any special talents or things that you did back in school, other than maybe language or something that you were involved in that?
I mean, I was always in choir.
Like church choir and stuff.
Well, and school choirs.
Oh, school choir, yeah.
I filled up my day with my.
Did your voice? When did you realize you had that voice?
Well,
Because it's quite distinctive. I mean,
it is distinctive. So I think I realized that I had an unusual, different kind of voice when my parents. So seriously, twice in the time I lived with them, they had somebody over for dinner that wasn't immediate family. And one time,
2 times.
I'm serious. So one time it was, I didn't know the guy, but apparently he worked in radio. And he's like, you have a voice for radio. And I was like, I have a voice for radio. But later on in life, I realized it was the easy listening voice. And that's just not the voice I wanted to aspire to.
yeah.
It's
You want a rocker voice, huh?
yeah. I mean, the Carpenters and John Denver.
Yeah, rock music, the Carpenters.
and this is
Wow, hardcore. here.
Hardcore, yeah.
that's the kind
He's
of
all
voice.
Anne Murray. A little,
Exactly. That's the voice. That's the radio voice I have. So this
and here we are.
This will help
Fleetwood
people.
Mac up next.
Exactly. So if you're having trouble sleeping today, I encourage you to just keep this podcast going.
That's right.
And
I don't know what they're talking about. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't
just
need you to.
just the part.
I
where
know
I'm
your
talking.
voice. You
it's
put
my
me to
voice.
sleep a few times, John.
Yeah.
So I really
So-
appreciate
I just woke up right now.
it. Yeah. Well, I'm still trying to wake up, so that's a part of it. So in terms of things of your age and music, we're talking about stuff like that. Did you have a favorite movie, or maybe in a genre of music or something like that? Or if there's any movie, because I will tell you this, and I'll tell you my story because and it's not a good one in terms of movie, but there's just a movie I remember walking into this movie, and I'll tell you a little bit later, but I was walking in this movie, and it's so iconic to me because we got there late, and I don't know if I should say a movie on here anyway, so you could tell yours. But anyway, it's just one of those emotional moments of time where I walked in this movie and we were late, and it was the funniest thing I ever seen in my life, and I still remember it to this day. And so I just don't know if maybe there's a movie that you saw that you can call back then, or something that is just a movie now that really.
So yeah, from my youth, I mean, there's a lot of really great movies that came out in the 80s with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, right?
I thought you were talking about Steven Seagal, but all right.
No. It's the
Come on.
the,
Marked for Death? Are you kidding? Out for Justice?
So-
Those names are
so
Under
I
Siege,
remember-
thank you very
Under
much.
Siege, okay.
I mean, you guys have seen. You're too young to remember this, but you know that that Star Wars, the original Star Wars, it had lines going around blocks at theaters for months on end, right?
Yeah. I mean, what year? 78
that was 77, I think,
77?
maybe. And so what was I, 10 years old? And all of my friends had been talking about this movie. Well, guess what family never goes to the movie theater?
Of course.
And so finally, I'm like, I got to ask. And so I'm like, Dad, can we go see Star Wars? He's like, okay. That was not a hard sell.
Dang.
I don't think he went with us. I think he dropped us off.
Yeah.
But so yeah, me and my sisters went and saw Star Wars, and
Dang.
that was pretty fun to see in the big theater. And then of course the other ones that stick with you: Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T.,
Yeah.
and my favorite horror movie from back then, thriller, whatever you want to call it. I know it's not horror at all, but
Yeah.
it's
We know you.
oh shoot.
Poltergeist?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody
That's why you
loved
got
that
this
movie.
job. You
Yeah.
read minds.
There
Well,
he is.
well, here's the other things. Like, I think we want to do a podcast too, a different one where
Oh yeah, we watch movies.
watch old movies and just talk about it.
Yeah.
That too.
The
So
reactions?
I mean, just
Reaction podcast.
yeah, just for fun and stuff like that. But we both like movies and stuff like that, so it'd just be interesting. But
Yeah, we used normally go to the $5 Tuesday in town, or
yeah, try
we
to
always
hit
hit me up. You gotta go see this movie. Sometimes I've already watched it, but I watch it again. He gets mad. I was like, "What are you doing watching it?"
Yeah, I do get mad. It's ridiculous.
Well, I like watching it twice. So then if I miss something the first time,
There's a lot to that.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get a reaction though if you miss it twice?
I guess you're right.
I don't know if maybe it sounds like it might be an alarm. Is that John on your phone over there? Maybe.
Oh, possibly. I'll be right back.
All right, yeah, I'll be right back. K101. Easy listening.
Yeah.
John will be right back.
Smooth jazz.
Listen to this new jam by the Carpenters. My mom, every time we drove somewhere, it's the Carpenters.
Jeez.
Every time. And I tell you, we go on like a family vacation, all of a sudden the Carpenters on. There's nothing better to put you to sleep than to put on
I mean,
Carpenters.
I'll admit, I actually really liked some of my mom's Carpenter's collection.
Well, I will admit to you, not on air. That I may or may not enjoy. Because my wife is always like, because I mean, I know music from like 50s all the way up. I mean, and sometimes my wife's like, how do you even know this? And I just enjoy music, but it also too, like these slow jams and these like, especially 80s, like this sort of music like that, which is real kind of, yacht rock too and cheesy, and stuff like that. She's like, how do you know this? And well, my mom kind of listened to that sort of.
A lot of
probably
those
know a lot
songs
more
are
than I
great when you do like karaoke.
Yeah.
With you can pull out some of these Carpenter songs. People are like, what? I've done that before. You sing
Yeah, I
just
pull out a
in
Lionel Richie.
Yeah, Lionel Richie, you go
Billy
sing
Ocean,
it.
little Billy Ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good times.
Caribbean Queen.
Yeah, I love Caribbean Queen, man. It's just like, well, people look at it like, you're not supposed to be singing that. Yeah, well, I don't care. I'll do it anyway.
It's funny.
Well, that's cool, man. So I guess, it's kind of an easier transition in terms of that. One question I know that David, well, actually, I didn't want to skip this one because it's a good one. So 80s was iconic for,
Oh yeah.
and this might be a little bit more not pertaining to you to some degrees because it may be a 70s, but what was your favorite cartoon?
Oh yeah.
And
So,
did you collect comics at all?
I didn't do comic books at all.
Oh wow.
So I was.
What about video games too?
Well,
On this one,
Like Nintendo or anything?
well,
or
because
Atari,
Pong or something. would have been
ColecoVision.
so cartoons first. Bugs Bunny all the way. I
Thank
was
you.
a
Nice.
Thank you. Hey,
slapstick fan.
Hold on. Tell her right there.
Bugs Bunny's
Haven.
the best. Haven. Bugs Bunny. There's nothing better.
Thank you.
You need the slapstick.
Thank
you.
you.
Need you need the wisecracker.
Thank you.
Maybe that's why I had trouble, growing.
Yeah,
That's
you're-
maturity.
No, we were at an antique shop the other day. One thing real quick, and I bought 3 compilations of Looney Tunes,
That's
DVDs
funny.
and stuff like that. And I love Looney Tunes, but by far the best Looney Tune is Bugs Bunny.
Bugs is
by
the
far.
best. And if he's preempted by anything, I mean, nothing goes right for the rest of the week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. So does David.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't need you to answer. You just
I just
nod your head. Thank you.
So-
he does too.
Video games. So I was right, kind of on the before the technology a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did get a little. I think it was a knockoff Pong
Oh,
game,
yeah.
like when I was in high school. And oh man, we got cable TV when I was in high school. And then eventually, what else did we get? We got a VCR when I was in high school.
brag about
I
it.
know.
Brag about
Mr.
it.
Rich
This
guy.
was- well, we
Jeez.
were a couple years behind everybody else. So when my dad started to hear about it from other people, he's like, "Oh, it's a what? And where do you get that thing? What does it do?"
Yeah.
And
He was watching Johnny Bravo, huh?
so don't
Yeah.
recognize that one.
A cartoon? Wow.
Johnny Bravo.
Johnny Bravo. Huh?
I think Johnny Bravo was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Man.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's
Yeah, another
not Johnny
90s
Bravo.
reference.
Yeah, I'm
of-
sorry.
Yeah.
I got serious issues, okay? Speed Racer, okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what I-
Speed Racer. Voltron.
Voltron would have been
Yeah.
later for him.
So yeah, I there was a point where I switched from Bugs Bunny to watching MASH reruns.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And then
That was a funny show.
and then the
I didn't understand some of it,
Yeah.
but
Now Mask, that cartoon was fantastic. That was the 80s, but Mask was a great
I didn't. Something was seriously wrong with me because I didn't watch the, like He-Man or any of these sort of superhero.
Thank you.
I never watched the superhero stuff. I always watched the
Wow.
comedy. It's like if it's not comedy, it's crap. So,
Wow.
so
That's a controversial take right there. It's not comedy, it's crap.
that was my attitude in when I was 10 years old. So.
yeah.
Nah, I agree. I was never, I never even. We bought comic books now just for nostalgia's sake, but I never even had comic books growing up ever.
Yeah.
Never was into it.
Rich white boy.
Never.
He was
Hey,
the,
I don't need you talking in the
Rich
camera.
white boy.
lady. I lived out of my car in high school. Thank you very much.
no one asked.
There was that point in time. I guess there was a point in time like after I was in foster home. Thank you, Haven. There was that short spurt where we had quite a bit of money. My mom, and her second husband.
You could use comic books
that
and
sweet spot. I
use
just
them
never
for insulation in the car.
just never had comic books was my thing. Sports was my life.
Yeah.
So just comic books just never.
I was in band. I played trumpet.
Yeah.
We know you're a nerd.
Music.
I
I
know
am,
you're a nerd.
yeah,
We
I
got
was-
it. Okay, we got it. We got it.
Same deal here. I was the choir nerd, so yeah.
Well,
didn't get sports.
Well, I
at
also
all.
played sport, but I also was in choir in high school.
Yeah, you were well rounded. That's good.
I don't know about well rounded, but I just did it because they went on trips, and I was like, they're going to Disneyland, so I'm,
Yeah.
like, I'm joining.
We went
they're
to
going
Disneyland.
They're going to
With
Seattle.
band, we did.
They're going to Seattle. I want to join this. They're going to
Yeah.
Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival in Moscow,
The football
Idaho.
team never goes to Disneyland though. That's why he had to join the choir.
Well, it is, and it was like, oh well, other youth and no parents there, whatever. I'll go on that trip. So that was my thing. But all right.
All right.
I think we might have got to know John good enough.
I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys too. I hadn't met you before now.
I have no idea who you are.
The beat just ruined it.
The power went.
Is
The
it-
battery went out.
Is there not a power cable?
No, I didn't.
David.
What kind of power cable? Big
Oh,
batteries?
it's
USB power?
Oh, I think I have one for the camera.
I just need batteries.
I got some batteries at home.
I should have two more. Sorry.
Sucked them dry.
Don't walk away with your headphones, David.
Oh, so close. Dang it.
I was literally like, hey, don't walk away with your headphones.
I should tell you about my high school hairdo.
All right. Tell us
Yeah,
all about it.
It was terrible. It was
Well, it's
70s.
fantastic now.
It was
so.
70s. Isn't it? This is much better.
Yeah, it's much
I would
better.
I would have had a lot more attention from the girls with this.
Absolutely.
So it was 70s trying to be 80s, but just turning into a mess because because I didn't know how to get a haircut.
Did you have feathered hair? Is
It could feather a little bit. It was kind of a looser Napoleon Dynamite kind of look. It was too much hair, too much curl, but not tight, kinky curls. And it was terrible. Yeah.
My hair gets extremely tight curled, so it was weird because it was just real like flow. I mean, just kind of curly, not much, and then all of a sudden I hit puberty, and it's just like
Boing.
boing. I'm like, oh, all right, well, I guess that's what happens with
Throw this comb away.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens. So, yeah, that's good. I just at this moment in time, we're going to interject a picture of John.
We'll superimpose.
Superimpose shots with him with the feather hair. On. So,
I've got a lot of really bad pictures of my hairdo.
Actually, it'd be funny. I think that'd be awesome.
It would be, yeah.
To get you guys a picture of you guys like from
like 15.
yeah,
Yeah,
like 15.
15.
Everybody 15 and
Everyone's
put it
all
in the
awkward.
picture. I think that'd be pretty funny, man. Good idea, John. I like that.
That's good.
I think that's a good one to put out there. But yeah, I guess we're back now that David decided to spill his miso soup all over the place.
It was just
I forgot where it was.
It was a commercial break.
It was great. Well, he made sure.
Well, I'm so used to wearing Bluetooth headphones.
Oh yeah.
I'm just not.
You forgot about this is going to be attached. Yeah.
Actually, what happened? David got mad at John for
Through the
something about David's heritage and
Oh,
threw his miso soup down, and so it was exciting for a moment in time.
we've made up.
They've so made up.
My microphone smells like miso.
Yeah, so halfway through, you're gonna see David over here like
For the rest,
I know.
liking his score.
for the rest of your podcasting career,
Yeah.
you're going to be. I remember that first podcast interview we had.
Well, I think that'd be funny because David's normally licking his cord, so this time now it's like, there's a reason he's got miso soup on it, so he's not just a weirdo.
Now it doesn't look so weird.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look weird.
Well, you're going to get that cord in that microphone next time. So
Well, I would only hope so that seems to be the case. But
What else do you want to ask him? Or what else do you want to?
I mean,
well, I think that in terms of childhood memories and things like that, I think we've reached the pinnacle of what we've come for from John.
Yeah.
so I will tell you one more unique thing about my childhood. So my dad was a school teacher at Orem High School, but a good collection of the teachers during the summer worked on a river rafting company that ran the Green River, Colorado River, Grand Canyon, anywhere from northeast Utah all the way down into Arizona. And my dad was the truck driver for the company. And so I remember a couple times, I remember lots and lots of times. This was our family vacations because that's what we could afford. Yeah. Right. They would, in fact, when I was like 12, 14, they would just say he's hired help and he's working for his pay down the river. So I that's why my family could afford it, because they just said, yeah, we're deducting the fee, but you guys have to work. So anyways, but it was actually, there's a lot of different fun things about it. Sometimes, so I can remember when I was probably 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 3 or 4 different times, Dad'd get me up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Put us in the car. We'd go over to the warehouse.
It's not that early.
He'd open
I
up.
know,
He'd open up a
was-
box truck. Looks like a U-Haul, right? Fairly big-ish. And inside there'd be all these inflatable rafts, big inflatable rafts. They were actually World War II surplus pontoon bridges.
Whoa.
Tanks, and maybe not tanks, but trucks could drive over, right? So these were the rafts. Big rafts, and then a pile of life jackets. And he'd say, Johnny, go climb up on that pile of life jackets and go to sleep. So I would drive up Spanish Fork Canyon. I would ride up as the truck went up Spanish Fork Canyon over to Price and Moab. In the
That's a
back
drive.
of a
In the
box
back.
truck, in the back of a box truck on a pile of life jackets.
Yeah.
And I lived to tell about it.
Yeah.
And then
Truly roughing it.
truly roughing it. And another special memory is that, so I mentioned I grew up in Springville, Utah. Other than my older brother, I didn't know any smokers at all in town, right? And this was actually before he started smoking, so I hardly ever smelled cigarette smoke. But every time I went down to the river, when the tourists would arrive on their bus to get on the boats, there was several somebody's smoking. And meanwhile, us kids, my sister and me, we were running around on the sandstone in the shores, kind of catching crawfish. We're catching lizards. We're just running up and down, getting sunburnt.
How fun.
Having a jolly time. And that cigarette smoke was in the background. And so to this day, when I smell, I don't know if it's Marlboro or whatever it is, and I don't like smoke, but the smell of the cigarette
brings you back.
It's a good smell to me because it brings me back to those moments on that riverbank, and it's just kind of a special, fun memory that I've got.
Yeah.
So sorry.
That's cool. I remember me and my buddy, we had to get from Lewiston, Idaho, down to Boise, and we just hopped in the back of a pickup truck.
Just lay down.
No seatbelts.
Lay down with a pillow or something.
Lay down back there and just drove. And after my mission, I went back to Utah, but didn't really have any place to live. So, family in Salem, which is my last area, he said, "Hey man, if you want to come back and work," he made prosthetics and orthotics and stuff. And I said, "Oh, I ain't got nothing else to do." So I put my one bag and hopped in a semi truck.
Made it out here.
Utah, made it out to Oregon, and that family let me live with him for a while until he kind of figure stuff out. So, but it's just interesting stories throughout life that are.
I mean, seat belts were optional for for most of the history of cars.
Yeah. Well, they didn't used to go that fast. Most of those old made of metal.
And they didn't ticket for no seatbelt either.
Well, yeah, because there's no seatbelts in them, so it's hard to. We gave you a ticket. Well, no, you don't make any seatbelts. I don't care. Ticket's a ticket, man.
Yep.
So in terms of, after that you went on a mission. As previously stated, to Japan, right?
Yes, I did.
So tell us a little bit about
1986 to 88, and then I went back to Japan right afterwards. I taught English for a little while. Stayed for another 7 months. It was
when was the temple built in Japan? It was mid 80s, right?
I think it was early 80s. I did get to go there when I was working in Japan. Didn't get anywhere near it when I was a missionary, but
one of the apostles, and I can't remember who it was when he was. I don't know if it was dedicated, but was talking about it, and I made mentions of the Nephite people here in Japan.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, you have to look that up sometime because it was interesting. Because I can't remember if it was at the dedication or what part it was, but he specifically talked about the Nephite people in Japan.
Yeah, that's way cool. Yeah, I did they just refurbish that temple, or did they just build a second temple? Didn't they?
Yeah, I think
last year.
Yeah.
So so it was late 80s. So it was an interesting point in time in the history of Japan and U.S. Obviously, everybody looked at me and like Americans.
Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it was an interesting time because the American influence in Japan was overwhelmingly positive. Right after the war was over. Yeah. Every once in a while, you'd run into somebody who's like, get off my lawn kind of thing. Yeah. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, but first of all, they're a super polite society. Yeah. And second of all, the American influence was positive in general, and so you kind of had a little bit of celeb status, right?
Especially with that hair too.
Well, yeah. I mean, those were the
Dynamite hair.
Those were the 2 years that I was getting good haircuts.
Nice,
because somebody knew what to do.
Yeah, I remember some on my mission here. There's a lot of Filipino people, and they were kind of said the same thing. She was like, "Hey, you should come back to the Philippines with me. You'd be like a Superman. You'd be like a soap opera star."
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't quite that good, but it was okay. And I learned. I mean, you just no matter where you serve, you learn to love the people, right?
Yeah.
But specifically, what I feel like affected my thinking about people and relationships was the politeness and the gift giving, right? Gift giving there is it's like the baseline of being civil society is you give gifts and you give them with two hands, and when you receive gifts,
that's like the talk we heard
and
today.
you're very
everything's respectful.
super respectful. That's not to say that everything about their culture was amazing, but there was some really super things that had a really positive impact on me.
So what led you? Obviously, you grew up in a very LDS specific place, and I'm sure that you probably felt obligation, I think, at some point in time to serve a mission. I guess the question is like specifically like, okay, before, how do you feel like your testimony in terms of like the gospel and stuff was before you left on your mission? Like,
right. Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about obligation. It was more, I mean, there was some obligation to others, but it was mostly, I felt like obligation, expectation on myself and to the Lord. It took a long time to learn that, hey, I'm supposed to serve out of love as opposed to duty and obligation. But yeah, there was like never any question when I was growing up that I was going to go on a mission.
That's just what you did.
It's what you do.
Yeah.
I had my older brothers, they've both passed away now, so I can talk about them. They were
copyright infringement.
Rowdies. They had a lot of trouble in their teenage years. I was 10 years behind them. They're 9 and 10 years older than me. So in terms of making good choices in my life, I didn't necessarily have to have a spiritual witness of anything. It was just like, don't do what those two guys are doing. That's pretty simple. So yeah, I always knew I was going to serve, but I didn't, and I always had a testimony. I was like born with a testimony in some ways, particularly of the existence of God. God was trying very patiently to get my attention in terms of understanding Him, but as I was growing up, God was just like, He's the guy up there I got to please somehow, and that's not working out very well so far. So I knew I wanted to serve. As far as my desire to serve for our church, so again, it's the obligation, expectation. But I was thinking about where did my testimony of the restoration come from, right? Well, first of all, it made complete sense to me. So I was into it logically, and was everything. Nobody could convince me otherwise. But I think there was just little hints, right? That this is the right thing and the true thing. And I got my patriarchal blessing early, and I was always thinking about the first vision. Was really important to me in my life, just thinking about it, right? So I was really lucky in the sense that even though my parents, they were practicing and church was a part of life, there was a little bit of gospel teaching in the home, but not a lot. And partly it was because my older brothers were distracting my parents to the point of, emotional survival, right? I learned... somehow I learned, I didn't exactly learn what the Spirit was and like, this is the Spirit and this isn't, but I had a sense of right and wrong, and the desire to go on a mission was there. At the same time, I was terrified. The temple was a startling experience. They didn't prepare you a lot back then, and it was maybe not as easy.
They didn't have like temple prep classes or anything?
No. And maybe it's easier to understand now. The ceremony now is actually easier to understand than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I know we talked a little bit of Sunday, like before church, like too, about that specifically, about how to educate people, specifically like the temple and stuff like that before they go. And
there's so much. It's like it's super simple to understand, but it would take a book to explain it. I just feel like this is ancient stuff. This is how God has dealt with His people from the beginning of time, right?
Sure.
But my life was school, music, movies, TV, maybe a friend here or there, a part-time job. a little bit of money questions, can I afford to buy any shirt that makes me not look like a dork? Just those.
So you're still working on that too?
It's never got, I can afford it now. I just don't know how to do it.
But that's the problem with life. It changes. Like, now you can afford stuff. You're like, Oh, now I,
just
don't even know how to
figured
do
this
it.
out.
Yeah, I just know how to do
And
it.
they changed it on me. No, but so I had that desire to serve, and then like many, if not most missionaries, it's when you're out there teaching it and you're hearing everybody else's testimonies, you're talking to people who don't even have a background in Christianity, and they joined the church and like, why did you do that? So, I mean, I learned so much from the members, right? And was able to teach a little bit, not a lot. There's not a lot of rapid conversion going on there, but I love it when I see a Japanese general authority, kind of serving and bringing those stories in and their culture in, and then I think by the time my mission was over, even though I didn't have life figured out at all, but I definitely knew that I was in this for the long run, that the church and the gospel was going to be part of my life.
Is there any,
I learned to love the Book of Mormon.
Is there any moment on your mission that, any real cool experience on your mission that you get like a guy coming at you with a samurai sword or?
I mean, as far as
Do you sumo wrestle anybody?
moments
Yeah, sumo wrestler, earthquake happened.
I
Anything like.
I actually, when I was working there, I was in a different part of the country, so more earthquakes than when I was on my mission. But there's a lot of little experiences. Probably just a quick one was
Any crazy thing you ate?
Well, yes. There was a little tiny island halfway between main Okinawa. That's not mainland, but the main Okinawan island and Taiwan. A little island called Miyako Island, and I was the only white guy. My
Wow.
my companion was Japanese, and so I'd already had 3 months with another companion, so this was language immersion, and anyways, so everybody around me is Japanese. They kind of a different sort of I guess it's sub race or something, a different facial structure in Okinawa versus mainland Japan.
Oh, wow.
And there's people that would speak languages that weren't Japanese that my companion didn't understand. But it was kind of tropical-ish, and we were walking this little country road, and there would be the family graves. Everything's cremation, so the graves, the
Gravestone or?
Yeah, it's haka is grave, but I can't think of what
gotcha.
I can't think of what the thing is called. But outside in the communities there in Okinawa, there would be like these little family graveyards, and they'd be like sculpted stone things. That there might be 5 or 6 or 10 different ancestors' ashes in, and so you get a lot more per square foot than what you would over here, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, walking through that kind of neighborhood with tropical trees and big spiders and little house. The houses are adorable to me. They're kind of just what you would see from old Japanese anime or whatever. The sliding paper walls and whatever. Not all of them. And actually in Okinawa there was less of that. There was a lot of concrete because of the hurricanes.
Yeah.
But anyways, walking through this neighborhood, and this little kid, probably 5 years old, he saw me and he ran in terror. And so this is like one of the things that stands out most in my mission. I mean, at this point in my life, there would be days when I'd look in the mirror like, oh, I'm white. Because I'm like, everybody around me is Japanese. And anyways, this kid ran and he goes, Mom, there's a weird human.
Wow.
Henna ningen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd never seen it.
This kid had never probably even seen it on TV.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Crazy.
cracked me up. Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely immersion, right? And it's just,
yeah, it was it's kind of like in the I don't know if you've seen some of those RM or the singles ward, where
or the other side of heaven,
where the guy's saying, I attracted where there was never humans
yeah.
before.
Well, you ever see the other side of heaven? Where they went to,
Yeah.
Tropical Island. It's like,
Like,
okay.
It wasn't quite
Bruce Willis.
It wasn't quite that remote.
I mean, it's a little late, a little
old-fashioned.
earlier.
Yeah.
Time, so yeah, you definitely get.
I was 18 months into my mission before I had a transfer without an airplane flight. because
Oh,
it went from
it's-
island to
yeah,
island
yeah.
to island to finally got to the mainland.
That's really cool. It's
Yeah.
so interesting though to see what the Pacific Islands and islands like that, and which ones are booming and other ones the gospel just hasn't taken hold of. It's like the Philippines, right? I was talking about today. It's like
The ninth or 12th temple or something.
yeah,
Like that.
yeah. I mean, it's just like there's like 100 million people, there, but it was interesting because I know that like Gordon B. Hinckley was part of this, where they sent out the miracle, which is the Philippines, is they essentially left like 6 missionaries out there, this island, for the Philippines, and you know what I mean, and it's exploded.
It's the little seed.
Since then, and this is one of the references. I just found it interesting because one of the references that they said to it was, hey, this is the miracle that's happened in the Philippines is greater than the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea. Which is always, to me, it's like, okay, well, one of these references when you're talking about the second coming of Jesus Christ, one of those things is, that will be foretold is we'll see a miracle, greater than the parting of the Red Sea. And so that's always stuck in my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe something like that's been fulfilled, and you're seeing the fulfillment of it. Because it's like they're talking about we will celebrate this more, you know what I mean, than they did at the point in time. So it's just kind of interesting, like, okay, maybe this is something that's being fulfilled in our lifetime in terms of those things. Because it's interesting to listen to the prophet at the end where he said, no man knows the day or time, but he also said, but I've been prompted by the Lord
To tell us to get
tell
ready.
us that you're ready. And it's like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I love.
I'm going to finally get the haircut.
I love. I love the Second Coming. I think I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, and on the clearly on where the Book of Mormon took place. So I want to ask you a couple questions just about that, on your opinion on that real quick, of the Book of Mormon reference of where you feel, whether you have like a concrete, you know what I mean, what you feel about it, or just a general idea on what you feel about the where the Book of Mormon sort of took place. And
Yeah. So
because I know Rex sends you stuff.
I grew up, in the church and with seminary and everything, and the assumption was at that point in time, Central America, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in Mexico or wherever, right? Or Central America or Yucatan Peninsula
Yeah.
or whatever, right? That was just like baked in. Don't even think about anything else, right?
Yeah.
So, we did, and I did kind of have the transition that you kind of expect, looking back at the early history of the church when they first started believing it was down there with that narrow neck of land, right?
Yeah.
And being the Panama and like North America and South America as being the land northward and southward. And it was like in I think it was in my seminary years, they said, no, guys, that's, or maybe it was at BYU, my religion class, that's way too big. Think smaller. So, but still, the only time it started to occur to me to think about anywhere else was, of course, when you and Rex evangelizing it here, right? And
I don't know about evangelizing it, but
but just being forceful about your opinions. So
I don't know about that either. But.
and actually, I've listened. I don't remember the names of the scholars, but I've listened to the guys who are like quoting Joseph Smith, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if I got scholarship versus Joseph Smith, why wouldn't I stick with the prophet? Because everything else that where scholarship has come along behind, it's been verifying what Joseph Smith has said, right?
Yeah.
So I love the idea that it's somewhere in the heartland, either Mississippi River or Nauvoo or Great Lakes or New York or Tennessee or whatever, who knows. I love the idea. I think it's feasible. I doubt I'll live to the day where somebody finds archaeological evidence and say, well, this is exactly where this happened. Like, we can see the evidence of that. Maybe I'll live to the day where, if I live to the second coming, then there'll be Nephites coming back and say, let me show you my house.
I mean, in terms of those things, I mean, there certainly is a lot of evidence to suggest it.
Yeah.
So, well,
I love what feels like a new theory, even though it's probably the oldest theory. I love that it's very supportable. It's
Yeah.
as supportable as anything else, right?
Yeah.
So, if not more so. So,
Yeah.
and I love that it's in sync with statements by the prophet Joseph.
Yeah, and there's just a few, and I don't want to delve because I could talk for hours on it because I just really enjoy it. But I just
That's the third podcast.
some of
You'll
some
get
of
different-
some of the things that I find very enjoyable and what in reference of like so it's like what are they as they're building like in Nauvoo and things like that and across there in Iowa, and they're like, okay, well, what do we call this? The Doctrine and Covenants, like, what do we call this place? And I'm like, they're like, okay, well, call it Zarahemla.
Right.
And you're like, huh. It's kind of weird that, in terms of, and you go throughout the scriptures, they don't really just name cities after other cities. They name them something like if it's brand new, or if it's not going to be brand new, it's like, okay, well, what about Jerusalem in, America? Well, it's going to be a new Jerusalem. So it's something that can be called different in terms of like, it makes sense that this would be Zarahemla of what we're talking about. And it just, some of that stuff is very interesting. One of the things I have always a hard time was like, okay, well, a Tool Hill Cumorah thing that always bothered me. And when I was growing up, you have this like, oh, okay, well, these come in, and then later on they're like, oh yeah, there's Brigham Young's talking about, yeah, there's this cave open and there's many wagon loads of plates, and I'm like, well, how's Moroni wandering around from Central America and wandering all the way out to New York to deposit these plates
doing that because that's where Joseph Smith was going to be, obviously.
Well, obviously, but how is he wandering around with many wagon loads of plates to get all the way out there? So it was just kind of interesting.
He made lots of trips.
Yeah, I remember
like when you're coming in the car with the groceries, it's like you don't put all the bags in the van
I
at the
do.
same
I put
time.
them on my bag and I walk myself. But one of the things was letter number 7. I remember mentioning that to you one point in time. Not if you do, but Oliver Cowdery wrote letters of like the history of the church, and letter number 7. And Joseph Smith was, he condoned all these because he put them in his own journal and stuff that too. And in letter number 7, it says the great battles took place right next to this 1 mile area of both, not only the Jaredites, but also the Nephites took place right next to Hill Cumorah in York. And that's where it took place. So it's always like, huh, you know what I mean? You just kind of find it, but again, it's not like, I find this stuff very interesting and enjoyable. Rex finds it very interesting and enjoyable. Other people may say it is not salvation, you know what I mean, in terms of like, you're not going to be saved because you may know where it happens. Yep. I just find it very exciting.
And I'm the same way, maybe more with other church history stuff than with the Book of Mormon location specifically, but I get what you're saying. There's things that matter for the salvation of our souls and for the enrichment of our lives, but this is by no means a taboo subject. It's hobbies, it's scholarship, it's research, it's knowledge, and there's lots we can learn from the idea, and it just so happens to dovetail with things that we do love, which is the witness of Jesus Christ in the Book of Mormon. And so
I think there is something to it, because there wouldn't be so much about like details of it if it wasn't non-important in terms of, there's also promises, like I think it was like 38 or some promises to them specifically because of the land. So there is something to do with a promised land, and I get that now the idea is that the promised land can be anywhere you are in terms of that. I get that, but I also understand that there's a reason why this took place here with Adam and Eve. They were in this land, you know what I mean, and then they left, and then the Jaredites in this land, then they left, and then the Nephites are in this land, and they left. So there's something to this land that is here specifically. As we know, New Jerusalem will be built in Missouri. So there's reasons, but it's just kind of interesting in what it is. So I find it thoroughly enthralling for whatever reason it may be. But
he will wax
wax
days.
Poetic.
Wax poetic for days on this subject.
So I guess in terms of, is there anything like in the, second coming of Jesus Christ, that, because that's another subject that I find really thrilling, because there's so many aspects of it and so many ideas behind it that.
I mean, my thoughts could fill a teacup. It used to be something that I was ultra focused on, right? That I wanted to have happen, and the sooner the better. And, that seemed like that's where hope resides, right?
Yeah.
But once you find hope in everything else in life, it's like, well, that's good too. And especially the doctrine that, it's the judgment day for us individually is the day that we meet Christ, whether it's him coming here or us go. I think we got out of battery again.
Dang it.
Battery once again.
Or us going there. Okay, so let me go get. So you were asking me about the second coming?
Yeah.
My thoughts?
I mean, clearly there's lots of different thoughts, right, in terms of
So
how this plays out.
yeah, so I guess I mean, my thoughts have transitioned a lot over the years, right? So I first used to be like trying, looking in the scriptures, looking at the modern events, current events, and trying to like pin down, this is when this is happening, and like this happened, and this means this country.
You're like going to Revelation.
And this means that country.
Daniel, you're going to Matthew.
Yeah. So, yep, Daniel, Revelations, Matthew. So, and before long, I figured out I didn't know anything.
Perfect.
It took too long, but eventually, you realize that there's so much to do being a parent, and you find the joy in that, and it's like I'm not waiting for the Deus ex machina, right? Where my little life has come saved by God changing the entire world just for me, right? I'm actually enjoying life, right? So, so then listening a little closer to, I mean, you got things like 9/11 that happen, and you're like, whoa, this is different. Things are going to be different now, and they certainly are. Oh yeah, you're good. So I was just going to help you out.
Thanks.
So currently, I guess where I'm thinking is, when my kids were little, I'd say might not be in my lifetime, but it'll probably be in your lifetime.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, it's for sure somewhere between 10 years and 100 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I have no idea. Things that make, and I love that our prophet is telling us that he is being prompted to tell us to prepare for it. Yeah. And I feel like, that applies whether I die before it happens or I'm alive when it happens. Because it's spiritual preparation. I love that over the last, particularly during the pandemic, but I don't think I've heard the prophets mention it lately, but a principle that Elder Christofferson said somewhere back there, 2020, 2021, was that the relationships that our church builds with other churches is part of preparing for the second coming. And that just really inspired me, because that's like, we're part of the salt of the earth, preserving the world, the righteous of the world. And so I do talk a lot about what I predict, and it's all wrong. It's 100% wrong. I am a bad guesser, and I don't know the scriptures that well.
You haven't won the lotto yet.
So I hesitate to share my thoughts, because I don't want anybody to think, well, hey, that's the great idea, let's vote for that. And like, this is how it's really going to play out. My wife will be very disappointed that I'm even sharing any details on this, because of what I think, because like what we think truly doesn't matter, right? We're trying to understand the scriptures. God gave us the signs in the scriptures, though, for a reason, to bless us, so that when we see things happen, we just don't think, oh no, another terrible thing happened. We go, oh, yep, that is a sign that he cares about us, right?
And I think that's why this is important to. I realize, like, you talking about your wife and sharing stuff like that, but I think the topic of the second coming of Christ has always been one that happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's in the scriptures, you know what I mean? And it's
we're
part of it is supposed to be discussed.
We're expected to look forward to it as well as prepare for it. And the saints 100 years ago, they're preparing for it diligently, as if it's going to happen in their lifetime. May or may not happen in our lifetime. But I guess that being one key principle, is that it's our spiritual preparation. So it's kind of irrelevant when it happens, in the sense of my personal life and my personal choices. But as far as, if I was going to write this out as a novel of, how is the world going to be, how are things going to line up toward when he comes again? some principles I think it's important to keep in mind is that there's a prophecy that that I think it's in Isaiah, and it's probably quoted in the Book of Mormon too, that says that people will say he delays his coming.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I always assumed that was like the faithless people, right? Like the worldly people, right? But now I'm starting to think it might be the me people, that was like, oh man, this should have happened by now. I really, this is taking too long. The other thing I think of is the model for it is in the Book of Mormon, right? And obviously every nation is different. Every century is different. But you have, the prophets giving prophecies. You have, people not knowing that it's about to happen, right? And Christ's death and the second sign, right? There wasn't a specific timetable for that one, I don't think. But the other thing that comes to mind is that it was a pretty bad, wicked place, and it wasn't fun leading up to that moment, right? And so at least for Western Oregon right now, where I live, life's pretty placid and peaceful. The daffodils are blooming. The
spring is in the air.
Spring is in the air.
No, it's starting to rain again, though.
Yeah. And our lives
happen now, please. It's rain. It's really annoying me.
At least before we go back into winter again, right?
On,
before
sis,
winter. But no, so I think I want to steel myself, right, against hoping too much.
Yeah.
And because the reality is, there could be a lot of unpleasant, difficult, times that I need to be patient through, right? And before that beautiful moment comes, I'm one of the. I think I understand that prior to that time, and I don't think this is scriptural exactly, so I'm making it up. But I think that Zion, the church, the kingdom of God, will become more of a public worldwide entity. I mean, obviously we're an entity and we're public and we're worldwide, but in the sense of when you read the international news, national news headlines, along with everything else, you're going to say, oh, and the church said this. That it's going to be like, it's one of the top things that people in the whole world care about is like, what is our church doing? 6 years ago, when they dedicated the temple in Rome, it's probably only 5 years ago. That year, the prophet said that the church is at a hinge point.
Yeah.
Right? Which to me sounds like it's a different trajectory of growth.
He definitely said that in the 2020 conference.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think the Rome dedication was either 2019 or 2020. So it's exciting for me because, there's a few decades left in my life and I might be able to see, the sort of the change and the blossoming of what that is like as the church becomes more central to world events.
Yeah.
This is, like I said, I'm a bad guesser. I'm wrong. I'm not a good scriptorian. So don't quote me, or if you do quote me, just tell everybody that you tell about it that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I just think, I think mostly there's a lot of opinions I have on it. But I think mostly that the thing that I want to portray the most is like, if what you kind of said earlier is kind of important too, is like, if you're waiting on things that need to happen, they may have already happened. And that's a kind of idea, like a lot of these things may be so subtle in what they're taking place that you may miss them. And that's the parable of the virgins, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have 5 that are like, okay, we're paying attention, or we know maybe spiritual wise that, what's kind of going on, as the others may not. And so they're still members of the church, but it may just pass them by because they're not maybe specifically looking for, these things. I know that, Ezra Taft Benson, in one of his talks, he's talking about, okay, well, you're in the last inning, you know what I mean, of this baseball game.
Yeah.
Well, the prophet, President Nelson said, you're in the last half of the last inning.
Yeah.
So there's some things to really like, and one of the things that I find, one of the, like, to me, it's like, well, people are always like, well, what about the temple in Missouri or things like that? It's like, and that's why it's always fascinating to me because, if you really look at it in terms of like that, the visitor center in Missouri, as it was being built, and I can't remember the name, who the apostle who was a part of this process happening with David O. McKay in this Missouri's talking about, he was literally, because it's a 24 temple complex, that's the structures that's going to be there.
Right.
So, but the visitor center has already been put in terms of place of like number 13 temple complex on there.
Because we only own part of that land.
Yeah,
right?
and so in part of the as they're writing these up and as the architect and doing all these things, stuff like that, they already know that this could be transitioned to a temple in a week.
Yeah.
Because it was built with the same specificities as the other. So it's like, how
many prophecies are out there that we can't really say, well, that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. And I
Right.
think the idea is that I've listened to a bunch of stuff too, like where some apostles talk about the only thing that needs to happen is Christ to come.
Yeah.
That's really that on these. So if we're waiting for these big, because I don't know if these big events are going to take place. You're like, okay, well, what about these, the two, prophets, apostles being, in Jerusalem, dying and then coming
Right.
back 3 days later and stuff like that. If you're waiting for these events to take place,
Yeah.
and they're like so public spectacle, why wouldn't everybody just wait and then like, oh, this is
Yeah.
what it is.
Now it's
Time to repent.
Yeah.
I think that it's all this stuff as they're taking place, and as you're spiritually aware, you're in tune with the Spirit, that you can know some things as they happen, as they take place, so that you prepare yourself. But here's the reality: is like, we don't need to necessarily all that, but we should pay attention. But we should just be prepared. You know what I mean? Because you could die tomorrow.
Exactly.
And-
I could get hit by an electric bike on my way home today.
Or a Volkswagen wagon,
Yeah.
like the one I'm driving.
I'll let you go first. I should have looked these scriptures up, but this is something I remember from an institute class decades ago. But something that inspires me about prophecies of the second coming, that I think if we go back and I study the scriptures, we'll bear this out. But forgive me if I'm wrong about this. In the Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about people coming with Jesus in the air.
Yeah.
This would be people who have passed away, who are celestial kingdom people, right? Celestial kingdom people who have passed away will come down with Jesus to as part of the second coming, at least for a brief visit, right?
Well, the morning of the first resurrection.
Yes, and I don't even know where the scripture is for this next part, so I apologize if it's false doctrine. You can edit it out, but I believe I understand that if you are telestial guys, you're not going to make it through the second coming.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be gone at some minute in time prior to that. Who knows? And so the middle kingdom people will probably be the guys that are like, hooray! They're all, they're not floating in the air. They're not rising up in the air to come down with him. I think that was the other part of it. If you're celestial and you're alive, then you get to rise up and come down.
Yeah.
And if you're not celestial, that's okay. You don't get to fly that day. You're still good. Life's good. You get to be there with the Savior. So that to me is like an inspiring thought. It's like, I really want to fly down in the air with, when Jesus comes again.
Be caught up with the Lord at that
Yeah.
moment.
If I'm alive, we'll do some flying. If I'm passed away by then, I'll come down with him. And again, I'm not solid on the scriptures on that, so I apologize.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it's so very interesting because of okay, well, what's it going to be like when the whole landmass comes back together? Like, how is this process taken out? And it's like all the mountains will be flattened too, and it'll just be like.
Well, and some of that may be at the end of the millennium, right, where the Earth transitions into celestial.
I mean, maybe and that's the hard, because it's like, and I think fundamentally why the Earth is at a tilt now, right? I mean, I don't think part of this, again, this is a Bose, like, and I don't believe in this first form that the earth was at a tilt. I think that because they didn't discuss seasons, you know what I mean, until later on, and then all of a sudden a tilt happened, and that's when ideally, okay, well then all of a sudden you see rainbows being formed because these seasons are being, so it's just kind of interesting aspects. But at some point in time, and probably during the flood, is when the idea that these land masses broke apart, because it talks about the water coming up from below, not just downpour, because that wouldn't do enough in 40 days. I mean, you're talking about water coming below and expanding, these things and stuff like that. And so I think that that's when the tilt took place, as it become, a telestial world, in some of these. Yeah. And so, and it may, and that's at the time, but well, if in order for a lot of stuff come back, well, if the tilt goes back to where it normally was, you know what I mean? A lot of these things take place, because that would automatically, because that's the concept of how land would form back together, you know what I mean, in terms of those things. So it's just kind of, but those are things I find interesting.
Yeah,
like,
that is interesting. I'll tell you what, though, so I just watched the second Independence Day movie that came out.
It was terrible.
Like 10 years ago. Yeah. Well, the other thing is it was terrible, but they had a spaceship that was basically the size of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And it landed there, coast to coast, destroyed, a little bit on each, in UK and the East Coast of the US. Okay, the whole planet would fly apart. Come on. Come on.
Are you saying they didn't do any?
I don't think they researched that with any geologists at all.
Or gravity?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll change the tilt. It'll mix everything. But maybe that's how the land masses come back together, is that a giant alien ship lands. And
I don't know that I haven't read scriptures about that one yet, about the giant alien ship.
I don't think it's again,
still looking. I mean, we're still waiting for scriptures to come, so I get it. So maybe that's the sealed portion.
Could be anything.
All those people who apparently built these aliens who built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
No, we're gonna get
Don't get me started.
Hey, that's a different podcast.
Right, that's another podcast.
We got 4 podcasts.
Yeah, we got stuff to work
you guys
on.
can have
The
channels
9/11
upon
one,
channels.
I almost knee-jerked when you guys mentioned 9/11. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I know too. I was like, oh, John, don't do it, man.
I had to hold my tongue on
Don't
that
do it. No.
John needs his little projection.
Yeah.
Well, I do think it's super duper interesting / exciting that the prophet is talking about it so much these days.
Yeah, I mean, if you
because
look,
that I remember that happened a little bit when I was a little kid, but that really didn't happen for a couple decades.
I was like, did I just hear him right? Like, I had to double listen, I guess, to read between the lines, and I go, oh.
And if you definitely look back, because you go like Scripture Index, stuff like this, or we're talking about, you can kind of look up some of the stuff, how many times you mention like certain words and stuff like that. And these kind of words that are used, these sort of second coming words and stuff like that, haven't been used since Ezra Taft Benson. Yeah, because he used them quite a bit and talked about all this stuff. And then and then Howard Dower Hampton, he wasn't very. And then Gordon B. Hinckley and Thomas S. Monson, they didn't really talk about a lot of that stuff, which good or bad. I mean, that just wasn't part of it. But he's definitely brought back a lot more.
So in a way, it's like this is my second cycle of that, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously the Lord inspiring President Benson to talk about that a lot didn't mean that it was going to happen in the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Still don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime. I'm kind of as a betting man, I would say no.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like you said, we have to prepare for.
Yeah.
If it happens tomorrow, or if you just happen to meet the Lord tomorrow, and that's important.
I'll be happy to meet him whenever he's ready to meet me.
Well, I do appreciate this very much, John.
Yeah,
and you
thanks,
sitting down with this. If you could bear
like,
your testimony,
share.
but bear your testimony about the gospel and what it means to you in your life, truly.
Oh wow, yeah, thank you. So it means everything to me. So when you say the gospel, it means the restored Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to me. It also means the gospel of repentance and the plan of salvation to me. And I'm just so thankful for scriptures and prophets and the gift of the Holy Ghost and priesthood and ordinances and temples, because, and even though, yes, all of these things existed in ancient times for a select group of people, to help them with their world. Our world is far more complex and challenging, I think, and having those gifts to strengthen my connection to my Heavenly Father has been a huge blessing. I have grown to love the Savior so much particularly in the last 10 years, that more than I really understood that I could in the earlier part of my life. And that's just purely because of his mercy and his patience and waiting for me to get a clue. So my testimony of him is that he is a God of mercy and love. He also has expectations of me, which I rarely meet, but I have a relationship with him. I do try to live a life of repentance, and I aspire to do a little better. When I look at my trajectory, over the last 5 years, 10 years, I'm like, well, okay, I'm kind of moving in positive direction, maybe a little bit. But and then you look at the church, and the church is a miracle. It is an absolute miraculous thing. I mean, where in the world could you get thousands of people around the world to volunteer their time, all the way up to full time, to teach a message, right? To teach the people about Jesus Christ. And where could you go sit down with a group of you think about a stake, right? And the number of people that come to a stake conference,
Oh yeah.
and you get that 600 people together, and what other organization could you pick one of them to lead that group of and they get told, they don't get to put in an application, there's no resume, there's no are you interested or not, there's just the will of the Lord as manifested through his chosen prophets and apostles and church leaders. All of them are fallible. Mistakes are made, and that is essentially what makes the work of the Lord in the church even more miraculous, is that we have this amazing thing happening with the spreading of the gospel and the growth of the testimonies of Jesus Christ throughout the world, and even not just in our church, but our church members helping to strengthen that witness of Jesus Christ in other people's. And that's all happening with fallible volunteers that are just doing their best because they love the Lord. So I just see miracles everywhere when I think about what the Lord has done for me individually, what the church has done for the world, what the Lord has done for the church. And even I would say that in addition to the church being a miracle, the best way for anyone to connect with, to get that witness of the church and of the Savior, is through reading the Book of Mormon. It is a witness of Christ. It's full of stories of sinful people repenting and coming to know the Savior, and it's full of doctrine of his mission, his sacrifice, his love, and it just brings us, as it says in the preface, it brings us closer to God, right? And the fact that it's I love this part of church history, in that there's been our detractors and people who don't want the Book of Mormon to be true have come up with 1,000 ways that it could have come into being other than what Joseph Smith said. And what's very wonderful and faith affirming is that there is the only evidence that exists is the only evidence that can exist is the evidence for what Joseph said has happened, right? So there's so many witnesses besides the 3 and the 8 that have been able to speak to that the plates existed, that Joseph Smith used godly gifts to translate it, and that the Book of Mormon it came to be because God loves us, his children, and he intends to save the whole world if he can, right? And so it's the church is the stone cut out of the mountain without hands, and the coming forth of the Book of Mormon is a provable miracle, right? It's if first step is just read the Book of Mormon and come to appreciate the voice of the prophets and the witness of Christ in it, and Christ's voice himself, his voice itself. And then if people are coming at you with any kind of, but this and but that, and it couldn't be, and this is, Joseph Smith was bad or whatever, just remember that was prophesied of him from day one, that people would say good things about him and bad things about him. And the truth doesn't change based on people's opinion, and the Lord will give you a witness of the truth. But it takes faith. It takes action for us to receive that witness. But yeah, I am a true believer. I know that there are people that many people that I'm close to have gone through faith crises and have kind of drifted away from the church or left it loudly. And I've asked myself this question: what could the church do or the prophets say that would offend me or challenge me so hard that I couldn't go forward, or that would make me seriously reconsider? And I maybe don't have as good of imagination as I should, but I'm in it. I'm in it all the way. There's nothing that can happen that can tear me away from the apostles and prophets and the scriptures that have been revealed, because it has brought peace and joy to my life, and it's the mechanism of the church is the structure by which the Lord can bring that, and we can participate, right? Yeah. We can bring that peace and joy to the people that are nearby us or people around the world, and it's just a marker of God's love for us, and I love him for it. I'm very thankful for the church. I'm very thankful for its leaders. I'm thankful for the scriptures, the prophets, and especially the gift of the Holy Ghost, which is just that comforting gift that we have in life, that will help us steer clear of trouble and will help us to stay close to our Father in heaven. So yeah, thank you for letting me give the long-winded answer.
No,
that's great.
Yeah, that's what we strive for. I think that's the most important part about the podcast is us being together and feeling the Spirit when we can, and expressing the joy of the gospel and our testimony, so that in the mouth of two or three witnesses, but also where two or more gathered in my name, the Spirit will be there, to be, like you talk about, faith affirming. And the reason we call it the Faith Odyssey is we're all on this path trying to figure it out. And I will echo you in terms of understanding. I grew up in the church, technically, but I wasn't converted. Like, I didn't really go to church until I was like 19 years old. But I was affiliated to the church. And one of the things I would always have been grateful is I just knew it was true. Like, I didn't go to church or whatever else, but I learned about it when I was younger and stuff like that. And for some reason, I just knew that it was true.
Isn't that a great gift?
And I honestly say this, like, we all have gifts of the Spirit, and mine truly is that. I just have known. And I'm not condoning arguing and stuff like that, but I just remember there would be times when I'd be 16 years old, 17, and somebody would be talking about the church, whatever else, and I'd argue. I'd get into them with it. And I'm again, I'm not condoning it, but
you're 16. So.
But something inside me was just so ingrained that I knew the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the true gospel on the earth. And like you said, I'm just so grateful for that. It is the greatest gift that we could have ever been given. And for some reason, we're less than 0.0000 whatever percent on this earth that have been given the opportunity to know the gospel of Jesus Christ for whatever reason, as we are elect, as it talks about being born in a time and a place to know the gospel of Jesus Christ. You think back and you're like, okay, what was I doing in the pre-youth life that gave me this opportunity and responsibility that others didn't get or never got. But it's also responsibility of what you talk about too, which also makes it scary, because then you're also responsible for living the gospel and spreading the gospel and doing those things that the Lord needs you to and asks you to do. So but I agree with you, and I appreciate your desire and your willingness to serve. And
It's been cool serving with you, alongside you.
Yeah, we've
These
been tag
years.
teaming on different callings over the
Yeah.
years, haven't we?
how about your testimony there, buddy? Huh?
Well, you spoke to the responsibility, and, it's our responsibility to, I think part of living in the church and participating in all the programs is that preparation for future generations.
Yeah.
I served my mission here as like a ward mission,
Yeah.
I converted to the church, but I knew, because I had always had influences. Like, I had a friend in high school I went to like a leadership camp, and there was like a buddy that I met there, and he was a member of the church. I went on a date with a member of the church, and my aunt, she lived across the street from a ward building in California, So all these different just subtle influences, and then, I met my wife, and then, just converted to the church that way. But I do have a testimony of the program, the whole church as a whole, and I just think it's a wonderful program, and it's been cool to be a part of it,
Yeah. And we're all work in progress, and that's the best part about it, is the continual repentance is an everyday thing. And that's what's been stressed lately, I think, a lot more is about, an everyday repentance of just progressing forward and moving forward, and, doing every part that you can, and waking up and thanking the Lord for what you have, but also understanding that you're fallible, and that you're
He
going
still
to sin.
loves me, even though I'm
Yeah.
fallible. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
It is. That is the beauty of it.
Well, great.
Thank you.
I think it was wonderful, and it was our first guest on the old Faith Odyssey and Funeral Potatoes podcast.
That's great. We'll have to have a reunion in 5 years and see how my
Yeah,
Odyssey
well,
went.
Right.
maybe before. Yeah, we'll just see where it goes, but just for the fun of it, and hopefully for posterity reason, just for people to see.
Yeah,
one
that
day,
that actually is a real big
yeah,
blessing right
I think
there.
it would be wonderful.
It's going to be out there on the internet where my kids can't delete it. So
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, they can personally delete it, for themselves, but yeah. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
John Boyack.
thank you.